Welcome, everybody. Storm here, and today I get the great honor of talking with Kirk Reiser, the author of Speakup. And I'm super excited, so I'm probably going to show nerves and be all, hero worship based sort of.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry, what were you?
Yeah. I just said, oh, please.
Well, so my thing is, back when you first started Speakup, well, how did you actually get into Linux?
Yeah. All right. You have to realize that before I started playing around with Linux, I was originally a DOS-based person. And I worked for the University of Western Ontario. They originally hired me in '83. They paid my salary and they said, we want you to generate an access technology program for Western. We'll forward the salary, but then you have to decide how to make it go after that. So I started out by writing a Braille translator in Pascal because I didn't know Pascal. I wanted to learn it, just like you wanted to learn Go. And started producing Braille books for university students throughout Ontario. I got a contract with the Ministry of Education here to produce those Braille books in the fields of foreign languages and mathematics. And then I got a contract with them to build a better translator. So I rewrote it in C with another friend and started just producing piles and piles of books. And then the Ministry of Education decided that they wanted to have their very own computer. So they developed a computer that they called the Icon. We called it the Bionic Beaver, is what it was. And they needed a bunch of software to operate this thing. So we ported the Braille translator to that. Now, the Bionic Beaver was written in QNX, which was developed at the University of Waterloo and then sold to RIM Technologies, the people who made the BlackBerry. And so we started developing software for them. I didn't know anything at the time about Unix. I came from a history of where I had worked when I was in university for NASA in their program for students that work and go to university at the same time. And so I was familiar with the IBM TSS operating system, but I didn't know anything about Unix. So a university was selling a used Unix box in the late 80s. It was made by a company named Spectrum Technology. Can't remember the model. I think it was 2300, 2600, something like that. And so I started learning about Unix. It was a System V system. Microsoft was working on Windows, and Ted Henderson had written JAWS. Larry Skutchkan had written ASAP, which is what I was using. There was another Windows, which I was using before I started playing with this Unix box. The Unix box had 32 serial ports in it, so I could connect to that. I had a Braille light, not a Braille light, a Braille link, sorry, that I used to plug into that. And I started playing with Unix. Linus Torvalds and I just happened to be reading the same book around 91, 92. A book by Andy Tannenbaum called Design Implementation of Operating Systems, I think, or something close to that. No, Design and Implementation of Operating Systems. And so he had put out on the net that he was releasing a program that he wrote called Linux. And I was thinking, geez, it would really be nice if we had a screen reader that was built into an operating system from the ground up. So towards the end of the 90s, I started looking at the code and following what was going on with it when he was working on it from about 94 on. And I started just poking around with the console code, working on trying to interface to it. I had no clue what I was doing, but I kept poking and piddling around with it and stuff, and I eventually got it to actually talk. And I put the first couple of versions of Speakup out just myself. Then I got a student that came to work for me in Western's work study program. And his name was Andy Berdan. He was sighted. And he came and we both started working on fleshing it out together. And it moved a lot faster with two of us working on it. He was a CS student, so he had a lot of qualifications. I was just a fucking hacker. And then a couple of other folks got interested. From the very first version that I put out, there was a couple of other blinks that wanted to use it, and they encouraged me a lot. And then another blind guy named Matt Campbell came along, and he wrote Speakup into the modular system for Linux because mine was monolithic. Linux was just moving to modules. Then they were this was before they had SMP support or any of that kind of thing. And yeah, so myself and Andy and Matt, I can't remember who else was part of the basic. There was a lot of blinks that were involved, but they weren't programmers. But yeah, we started that, and then another guy came along named Dave Borowski, who also kicked in and started helping with it. So that was the basic lineup at the beginning: myself and Andy and Matt.
when I first came in 2007, um, in October, uh, I used Ubuntu. Um, that's the one that was talked about the most, and I was very new, very much a newbie. Um, I started out with Unix and KSH in college, and then someone told me that there were actually desktops for Linux. I don't even remember who that was. And I was like, oh, cool, I'm going to try that. And then Windows Vista came out and they said they were dropping support for XP. And I tried Vista once and there were so many problems. I was just like, you know what? I'm going to get rid of this and go with Ubuntu. So I deleted everything, installed Ubuntu, and then 5 minutes later I was like, what the hell have I done? um, Back in those days, Orca was it did not have any browser support yet.
Back in those days, Orca didn't exist. Sun started working on that with Joni and a few other people, but I think that was a couple years later, if I'm not mistaken.
It was there in 2007, but it was very, very young. A lot of people they were talking about Nerponicus, I think. Wasn't that the other one?
Yeah. I don't know. I never knew another one other than Orca.
Yeah, there was one that Orca replaced, and I believe it was called Nerponicus or something like that.
Yeah, it could be. I can't remember when the first time I tried Orca was, but back in those days it was really, really sluggish. So you'd hit a key and it didn't actually say what you hit for about 2 seconds.
Oh yeah, I always turn off key echo because it distracts me. So I didn't get that, but it was a little sluggish when tabbing around or trying to find buttons too. It's come a long way.
Yeah. Oh, Joni's done a great job with that.
But I read about Speakup whenever I first, because I dove into the documentation and started looking at everything, and I went to use Speakup and it wasn't there, and I found out that I had to install a module. So I finally got that working, and then I had browsers because I could learn to use Elinks. I think it was back in the day.
Yeah. Lynx was the first one I used, and I moved over to eLynx later on because Lynx became very sluggish after a while, but eLynx was a lot better.
I finally settled on W3M because you can arrow.
I still use EWW in Emacs these days. Whenever I'm in text consoles, which is most of the time, I have to admit that I prefer text consoles. They still seem faster to me than X does. And although with the way that the tech has changed over the years, you have to use a graphical browser for anything that's very serious these days. Back in the day, Brandon and I wrote a couple of text-based browsers that had JavaScript support. I think the first one we called WB for web browser. Then we made one based on Firefox, only as a text interface underneath, called CLI Fox. And I just am these days coming to grips with using Orca and Firefox, but I'm not very good with it, as you could tell when I was trying to use your interface.
Yeah, that microphone thing is very problematic. I mean, it's not all that great in Chrome either, but it's really atrocious in Firefox trying to grant permission.
Yeah, it told me that the microphone was live, so I don't know what I was doing wrong.
So it took a long time from when Speakup became modules to when it got moved into staging, right? And it
Yeah,
took
it
forever
took
for it
a
to get out of staging.
Yeah, I have to admit that that is probably somewhat my fault. Because a lot of people wanted Speak Up in the actual kernel. And I wasn't keen on it being in the actual kernel. I didn't have anything against it being in. I just didn't care that much whether it was because I didn't have any problem patching the kernel and just running it. And then a bit of a strange thing happened. Alan Cox decided that he was going to support Speak Up getting into the actual kernel. And at the time, Carl Dahlke also had written a browser he called Jupiter, and he wanted it in the kernel as well. And the kernel folks said that they would put a couple of hooks in for Carl's browser, but they weren't interested in having it as part of the kernel, that they would strictly use Speakup. And to tell you the honest truth, after I got Speakup running in it, and not badly, I had more trouble with the kernel folks telling me what was wrong and what I should do. And at that juncture, I thought, I don't care whether this gets in or not, because I didn't feel like arguing all the time with the folks that were steering the way Linux was going back in the day.
So when you first started out, because back in, I think it was like 2014, maybe, I got a Odroid, which could run. Um, I ran Arch Linux ARM on there, um, and I figured that Speakup would just work. But I tried compiling the kernel with it, and it failed over and over again. And that's why me and a friend of mine named Kreis started Finner, just so I could have something to use in the command line, because yes, the command line is the most elegant of interfaces. But we started that because Speakup wouldn't work in it, and it works on the Pi. So I was kind of surprised that even though it was in the kernel at that time, it would fail on certain types of computers, and I'm still baffled as to why that would have happened even today.
Yeah. I honestly don't know why that would be. I can't imagine why it would be or would have been back then. Um, I never played with Arch, although a lot of people seem to get it running fine on Arch. I never was much of a swapper trying to. I has had enough trouble writing all the stupid drivers for the various synths that we used to have back in the day. Um, I started out using Slackware. Well, back then it was called Soft Landing. Um, that was before it became Slackware. And then I moved over to Debian when Ian and Debbie started Debian up. And I pretty much stuck with that. I'm still using Debian SID on most of my systems. So I'm not very experimental. Although I'm pretty sure Chris Brannon got Arch. He supported that for a while, and I'm not sure who else did, but they seem to have it working okay.
Yeah, and it works great on most things. It was just that one Arch 64 based device that, or no, that was It was 32-bit ARM. It was ARM 7H. And it just wouldn't work on that one, but it worked on the Pi and it worked everywhere else, just that one machine.
Yeah. Huh. Go figure.
But yeah, Chris eventually switched over to Void Linux.
Yeah. And I've actually got a couple of machines running Void because it's very simple and straightforward.
I really like DNet.
Yeah. What is it you like?
DNet. It's
that's. I don't think I've ever used it, but I did read something about it.
yeah, it's really nice. There's a fork of Arch called Artix that gets rid of systemd, and you can pick from like Runit and DNet and a couple more of them. OpenRC, I think, or maybe I got that wrong, but yeah, there's like 4 or 5 of them, and I chose DNet, and I really liked it. It's fast and simple. 2 of the best things.
Yeah, fast and simple. That's definitely the best. Well, I mean, take a look at it just for fun, because I certainly have enjoyed running Void. I've got Void running on. I have it running on my wife's system for.
So with Speakup nowadays, who's doing the work, the maintenance nowadays? Is it still you?
It's still you, or? No, I haven't done it for years and years and years. These days, it's the Linux kernel group with Samuel Thibault who does all the work on it.
Oh yeah, he's awesome. He is also current maintainer of Speech Dispatcher, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know when he took that over. Matter of fact, I'm not sure when the folks in Prague quit doing it, to tell you the truth. I haven't spoken with them for years. They got mad at me back in 2004 or 5 because I had written SpeechD up as an interface to go between Speakup and Speech Dispatcher. And I had said that I would use that for working with Speech Dispatcher. But eSpeak came out along the same time, or it got ported to Linux around the same time. And so I encouraged another guy, William Hubbs, to write a connector from Speakup to eSpeak, which we called eSpeakup. And they got really pissed off at me. And so I guess they didn't love me too much after that. So I'm not quite sure when they stopped doing their own updates to Speech Dispatcher.
Well, the cool thing is nowadays Speech Dispatcher is almost flawless. You remember back in the day when it would crash constantly and you'd have to restart it and fiddle around with speech to get it working every 5 minutes?
Yep, I sure do.
Well, under Samuel Thibault's leadership, it is rock solid. It's great.
Yeah, Samuel's done a good job. I don't know who will take over that whenever he decides he's going to retire. He's not very young anymore himself.
Yeah, we're coming, I guess, to a bit of a transition period. Oh, and I was wondering, because Fenrir is a user space screen reader, it doesn't touch the kernel at all. Was that even possible back when you first started Speakup? And if so, why did you choose kernel over user space?
Yeah. There was nothing. And they did not really have a very good virtual console system back in the beginning. So when I first started with Speakup, there wasn't virtual consoles. There was only one console. And so I wrote Speakup to interface into that console. I don't think there was a way to actually do it in user space back then.
So necessity shaped its development, I guess.
Or me fumbling around shaped us. Yeah.
That's where a lot of the best stuff comes from because, I mean, when I started a bunch of my projects, I had no clue what I was doing, and somehow they ended up working.
Yeah, that's the way it always is when you first start out doing something, right? You don't know what you're doing until you start laying some code, and eventually you get the code to do what you were sort of planning on it doing.
So, what are your thoughts on AI, and would you be okay with AI working on Speakup's code?
Yeah. It couldn't do any worse job than I did. I have no problem with LLMs. I think they're fine things. I'm a little bit late getting to the LLM game. I run one LLM on a machine here that I play with. And like I told you earlier, I'm just starting to learn how to play with Pi because it's always seemed when LLMs first started out that it was stupid that you could talk to them and they could talk to you, but you couldn't use them for controlling anything outside of, say, Llama. And so that when the, what was that first one that came out?
ChatGPT was probably the first one.
Well, it was the first LLM, but it wasn't the first one to actually be able to affect the OS and search the web, was it?
Now that I'm not really sure about. I kind of got in the game late myself, and then when I first found it, I thought it was maybe, more of a toy that could answer some really cool questions and think about, like a secret race of earthworms controlling the universe.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. No, the first OpenClaw was the first one I heard of that could actually affect the system outside of the actual talking to the LLM.
Yeah, that one had some scary security stuff when it was first coming out. There were quite a few hiccups that I read about.
Yeah, well, everything starts out having serious security issues because the people writing them aren't giving two shits about security. They're worried more about getting the thing to work. Then somebody steps in and says, oh, but this isn't secure. You can't do it that way. And then things start to tighten up. But when you first start out, you're just trying to get it to talk to you.
Oh yeah, and it's great how far this has come in such a short period of time because it's absolutely useful for pretty much everything nowadays.
Yeah, I hope at some point I'll get to the point where I can use it for something. Although I don't really code much anymore, I just poke around for the most part.
So I guess I'll do one more question and then we'll wind this down so I don't take up too much of your evening.
Sure.
Is there anything that you would like to say to upcoming future accessibility developers in Linux?
Oh, yeah, right. I don't know if I would listen to me. No. The only thing I would say is keep making things to make them better for accessibility. That's the only thing I can. I mean, accessibility has always been a catch-up game. It would really, really be nice if someday somebody would design something that had accessibility built in from scratch, but I don't see it happening.
That would be great, but we are very, very much a minority. So yeah, I doubt. But yeah, your advice there was awesome because quick and simple.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to see a whole lot of, I think there's a whole lot of things that still need to be done, still could be done.
Yeah, and my Stormux project is trying some of that, but I need a cloning machine or maybe even two of them.
Yeah. Yeah, you and me both. I think you've done wonderful with the projects that you've taken on and are doing. I mean, it's always very encouraging to see people picking up and doing stuff and expanding what there is. You know, I never used Fenrir because it came along a lot later. And I'm a lazy suck. But what you've done with I-38, I think it's a very spiffy, decent interface. And, the Barnard stuff you've done. And if I can ever figure out how to use your Stormux stuff, I think that's very cool. I mean, yeah, you've done some nice work.
I really appreciate it. That's the gold standard actually, because you being the original reason that we're able to use this at all. I mean, that's just like the most awesome praise you can get there. So yeah, I very much appreciate that.
Yes. Yeah, well, you got to give appreciation where it's due, and you've done a fine job.
Well, I want to say thanks for allowing this interview and all the stories. I mean, I had to remind myself to keep asking questions because I was kind of getting caught up in the story and just like keep going more and more.
Yes. That's my problem. I don't know when or what I should say when I'm talking to other people. Because, quite frankly, when I'm talking to folks about my background, to me, I sound like I'm blowing my bloody horn. And I don't ever mean to do that. I mean, I'm proud of what I've managed to do, but I've always thought I was nothing but a bloody hack at coding. And so, when I talk about myself, I feel like I'm being boastful and stupid. And I don't mean to be that way because I'm an anarchist. I don't believe in people pushing other people around.
I kind of like agree with that too. Have you ever read The Moon is a Harsh Mistress?
Yes. Excellent book. Yeah. Heinlein did a good job.
The professor was awesome.
Yeah. Yes, he was.
But yeah, I think that's reflected in your work too, because because of the ability to use a different operating system, because of your work, people have the freedom to make a choice and decide on their own what they want to do, and aren't forced into some proprietary operating system with proprietary screen readers. And so yeah, I mean your views are reflected in your work.
Yeah. Yeah. I would never push anything but open source. I am so dead against commercial stuff that I won't even own an Apple anything.
Me too.
Hey, I was an Apple tech.
Well, my first computer that I used back in, I think maybe '83 was an Apple IIe, and that was the best one they ever released, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it was a nice computer. And then, but that was really before proprietary stuff got very overwhelming and everything started being pushed as private. So when I went to Linux, that's what I meant it to be, is open.
Yeah, the internet was both a curse and a blessing because it's so powerful, but it also allows corporations to keep a short leash on what data and what items you rent because they don't want you to own anything. So,
So they're still doing that. I mean, what's Trump? I mean, he is single-handedly trying to make things more US based and more commercially based. I mean, Xi Jinping called for everybody getting together and sharing artificial intelligence stuff and LLMs and stuff. And Trump won't have anything to do with it.
yeah, I try to steer as clear of politics of anywhere that I can. So I'm probably not as up to date on all this stuff as I should be.
Yeah. Well, I'm certainly not. I just happened to hear that Xi Jinping had talked to the AI conference in China last couple of weeks ago. And he was touting how countries should get together and work together towards AI and LLMs.
It would be great if everybody could work together and build awesome stuff and not have like all the wars and disagreements and all that sort of stuff. But people being people, I have very little hope for that.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's too bad, but you're right.
Well, thank you so much for your time and all the awesome stories. And I will probably meet with you again at some point, just for my own selfish enjoyment.
Sure, anytime. Yeah, I mean, anytime you feel you want to hang out with, I'm on IRC on the Blind Hackers channel and on the Speakup channel, and I hang out on Chris Brannon's Mumble server with Ty and Deidre and those guys time to time. So anytime you want to get together and chat, I'm happy.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, and I guess I'm going to go ahead and hit the end button on the recording, and I will put this up on YouTube for everyone to enjoy.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, send me a link when you get it up. I'd be interested in hearing how I sound.
I think you will be impressed. I sure was.